at stage 12, paragraph page 1159.
59.
Okay, there you
Okay.
go. And our last headword was fire brigade, Newark type of lesson.
Great.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's start with revision. Let me just scroll down.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, here we go. First question.
Okay.
Okay, so why do we sip hot drink rather than gulp it down? Why do we sip hot drink rather than gulp it down? We sip
We
a hot
sip
drink
a hot drink
rather than gulp it
rather
down
than gulp it down
because
because my tongue might get burned.
might get burned. Very good. Is there a great variety in terms of size between different breeds of dogs? Is there a great variety in terms of size between different breeds of dogs? Yes,
Yes,
there is a great
there is a
variety
great
in terms
variety
of
in
size
terms of the size
between different breeds
between
of
different
dogs.
breeds of dogs.
Very good. What do we mean by smuggling? What do we mean by smuggling? By smuggling,
By
we mean
smuggling, we
taking
mean
something
taking
into
something
or out of a
into or
country
out of a
illegally.
country illegally.
Wait, is it considered a very serious offense to smuggle drugs such as heroin and cocaine into your country? Is it considered a very serious offense to smuggle drugs such as
Smuggle
heroin and cocaine into your country?
to your country.
Yes,
Yes,
it's considered a
it's
very
considered
serious
a
offense
very serious
to
offense
smuggle
to
drugs
smuggle
such as
drugs
heroin
such
and
as
cocaine
heroin and
into
cocaine
my country.
into my country.
Very good. What do we mean by a drug company? What do we mean by a drug company? By a drug
By a
company,
drug
we
company,
mean a
we mean
company
a
that
company
produces
that
drugs
produces
for
drugs
use in
for
medical
use
treatment.
in medical treatment.
Very good. Give me a sentence with the words very in it. Give me a sentence with the word very in it, please. You're the very person
You are the very
I'm
person
looking for.
I am looking for.
The car was parked
The car was
at the
parked
very end
at the
of the
very
street.
end of the street.
Very good. Okay, what do we mean when we say that a man fought his enemies one by one?
One by
What do we
one,
mean when we say the man fought his enemies one by one?
one by one.
When we say
When we
that a
say
man
that a
fought
man
his
fought
enemies
his
one
enemies
by one,
one by
we
one,
mean he
we
fought
mean
his
he
enemies
fought his
one
enemies
at a time,
one at a
not
time,
all together.
not all together.
Very good. Okay, next let me scroll down. Okay, although it's all like this one. Okay, here you go.
Okay.
Where are articles normally published? Where are articles normally published?
Published.
Articles are normally
Articles are
published
normally
in a
published
magazine,
in a magazine,
newspaper, or journal,
newspaper, or
or
journal,
on a website.
or an or on
On a website,
or on a website,
such as a blog.
such as a blog.
Very good. One more.
Okay.
Articles are normally
Articles are
published in
normally
a
published
magazine,
in a magazine,
newspapers, or journal,
newspapers, or journal,
or on a website,
or on a website,
such as a
such
blog.
as a blog.
Very good. How can we decide whether to write an article in formal, neutral, or informal style?
Informal
How can we
style,
decide whether to write an article in a formal, neutral, or
informal,
informal style?
informal
We can
style.
decide
We can
whether to
decide
write an
whether to
article
write an
in a
article
formal,
in a
neutral,
formal,
or
neutral,
informal
or
style
informal
by
style
thinking
by
about
thinking
where
about
it will be
where
published
it will be
and who
published
will read it.
and who will read it.
Weged, why should we try to make an article interesting to read? Why should we try to make an article interesting to read? We should try
We
to
should
make
try
an
to
article
make an article
interesting to read
interesting to
because
read
the reader
because the
has
reader
no
has
obligation
no
to
obligation
keep reading.
to keep it reading.
Very good. What should we put at the start of an article? What should we put at the start of an article? At the start
At
of
the
an
start
article,
of an
we should
article,
put an
we should put
eye-catching
an
title
eye-catching
and
title
an
and
interesting
an
first
interesting
sentence
first
or
sentence
introduction
or
paragraph.
introduction paragraph.
Very good. Why is it a good idea to use the pronoun you where appropriate?
Were
Why is
appropriate.
it a good idea to use the pronoun you where
You
appropriate?
were appropriate.
It's a good idea
It's a good
to
idea
use the
to use
pronoun
the
you
pronoun
where
you
appropriate
where appropriate
because it helps
because
to
it
keep the
helps
reader interested.
reader interested.
Right, one more. It's a good idea
It's a
to
good
use
idea
the
to
pronoun
use the
you
pronoun you
where appropriate
where appropriate
because it helps
because
to
it
keep the
helps
reader
to keep the reader
interested.
interested.
Very good. If a barbecue fire gets out of control and sets some trees alight, which emergency service would you call? If
called?
a barbecue fire get out of control and set some trees alight, which emergency service would you call? If a barbecue
If a
fire got
barbecue
out
fire
of control
got out of
and
control
set some
and
trees
set
alight,
some trees
I
alight,
call the fire
I'd,
brigade.
I'd call the fire brigade.
Very good. Sometimes in a bus we see a notice saying, please do not alight until the bus stop. What does that mean? Sometimes in a bus we see a notice saying, please do not alight until the bus stop. What does that
Bus
mean?
stop. What does that
A
mean?
notice in a
A
bus
notice
that
in a bus
says,
that
please do
says,
not alight
please do not
until the
alight
bus
until
stops
the bus stops
means please do
means
not get off
please do not get
until
off
the bus stops.
until the bus stops.
Very good. Okay, so that's the end of our revision. Let's have Nurek.
Okay.
Very good. Okay,
Okay.
so repeat: tackle,
Tackle,
reprimand,
reprimand,
resort to,
resort to,
foresee.
foresee,
Very good. Okay, listen. Tackle is a verb. It means to force the player with a
force the
ball
player
to
with
fall
the
on the
ball
ground.
to fall on the ground.
For example, the player was tackled just outside the
Just
penalty
outside
area.
the area.
Tackle also means to accept something or
Accept something
someone as a
or
challenge.
someone as a
For
challenge.
example, not everybody in the world
Not
puts
in the
effort
world
to tackle the
effort
world's
to tackle
climate
the world
problems.
climate problems.
Reprimand is a verb. It
Verb,
means to speak in an
speak
angry and
in an
critical
angry,
way to
critical way
someone who
to
has done
someone
something
who has
wrong,
done something
disobeyed
wrong,
an order,
disobeyed
etc.
order, etc.
For example, if one football player
One
tackles
player
another
tackled
in a
another
dangerous fashion,
in a
the
dangerous
player
fashion,
is
the player
reprimanded
is
or
reprimanded
punished.
or punished.
Resort to is a phrasal verb. It means to do
Personal
or use
to do
something,
or use something,
especially because no
especially
other
because
choice
no
are
other
possible.
choice are possible.
For example, very poor people are often put in
Put
situations
in
where
situations
they are forced to
where they
resort to
cause resort
violence,
violence,
especially when they are very
especially when
hungry
they are
and
very
have to get
hungry,
money to
have
eat.
to get money to eat.
Foresee, the word foresee
Foresee,
is a verb.
verb,
It means to see or
to
become
see,
aware of
become
something
aware of
that
something
has not yet
that
happened.
has not yet happened.
For example, I can foresee a time in the
For the
future
time
when
in the future
governments
when
might
government
resort to banning
might
the
resort to
private use
banning
of
the private
cars
use of
in an
cars
effort to
in
tackle
an
the
effort to
world's
tackle
climate
the world
problems.
climate problem.
Very good. Okay, so let's practice.
Okay, yeah.
If one football player tackles another in a dangerous
Another in a
fashion, what
dangerous question.
happens?
What
If
happens?
one football player tackles another in a dangerous fashion, what happens? If one football
If
player
one football
tackles
player
another
tackles
in a
another
dangerous
in a
fashion,
dangerous
the
fashion,
player is
the player
reprimanded
is
or
reprimanded
punished.
or punished.
Very good. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been forced to
Or
resort
being
to
forced to resort
violence?
to violence.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've been forced to resort to violence? Yes or no?
No,
I've never been
I've
in
never
a
been in
situation
a situation
where I've been
where
forced
I've been
to
forced
resort to
to
violence.
resort to violence.
Very good. Can you foresee a time in the future when governments might resort to banning the private use of cars in an effort to tackle the world's climate problems? Can you foresee a time in the future when governments might resort to banning the private use of cars in an effort to tackle the world's climate problems? Yes or no?
No,
I can't foresee
I
a
can't
time
foresee
in
a
the future
time in the
when
future when
governments might
governments
resort to
might
banning the
resort to
private
banning a
use
private
of
use
cars
of
in
cars
an effort
in an
to
effort
tackle the
to
world's
tackle the world
climate problems.
climate problems.
Very good. Next bit, auction.
Auction,
Bid.
bid,
Very good. Okay, listen, auction is a noun. It means a public sale at
public
which things
sale,
are sold to the people
so to
who
the
offer
people
to pay the
who
most.
want to pay the most.
For example, most houses don't have fixed prices.
Fixed
They are
price,
usually auctioned to the public
auction
who are
to the public
interested in
who are
buying it.
interested in buying it.
Bid is a verb. It means to offer to pay a particular
To pay
amount
a
of money
particular
for
amount of
something
money
that is
for
being
something
sold.
that is being
For
sold.
example, one man bid
One man bid
500,000 pounds for the
500,000
house,
for the
and the other
house,
bid
and the other bid
500,500 pounds for it.
500 pounds.
Let's practice. Have you ever bid for anything successfully in an auction? Have you ever bid for anything successfully in an auction? Yes or no?
No,
I have
I have
never bid
never
for
been
anything
for anything
successfully in an
successfully
auction.
in an auction.
Very good. Next, repeat undo.
Undue,
Very good. Undo or undo. Okay.
undue
Undo is an adjective. It means
adjective,
excessive. Undue or
excessive,
too much, undue.
undue, too
For
much.
example, I was not unduly worried about the fact that
About
I hadn't yet received
I had yet
an
received
answer to my
an
letter.
answer to my letter.
Okay, let's practice. What's the meaning of the word undue? What's the meaning of the word undue? The meaning of the
The
word
meaning of the
undue
word
is
undue is
excessive.
accessible.
Give me a sentence with the word unduly in it. Give me a sentence with the word unduly in it, please.
Unduly it,
I was
please.
not
I was
unduly
not
worried
unduly.
about
I
I
was
was
not.
not
I was
unduly
not
worried
unduly worried
about the fact that
about the fact
I
that
hadn't yet
I
received
hadn't yet
an
received
answer to my
an
letter.
answer to my letter.
Very good. Next, repeat hurdle,
Hurdle,
pace.
pace.
Very good. Okay, listen. Pace is a noun. It means a space taken when taking a step,
Taking a step,
especially while walking or running.
while walking or
For
running.
example, old people can't walk with great pace.
With a
They
great
often
pace.
walk with short
Of walk
paces,
with
short steps.
short steps.
Hurtle is a verb. It means to move very quickly in an uncontrolled and usually
Uncontrolled,
dangerous manner.
usually dangerous
Hurdle.
manner.
For example,
Hurtle.
the horse and cart came hurtling
Horse
round the
came
corner
hurtling
in a
round the
frightening
corner.
pace. So it means
Pace.
very fast.
Very
Okay,
fast.
let's
Okay.
practice. What does the verb hurtle mean? What does the verb hurtle mean? The verb
The verb
hurtle means
hurtle
to
means
move very
to
quickly
move very
in
quickly
an
in
uncontrolled
an uncontrolled
and usually
and
dangerous
usually
manner.
dangerous manner.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. The horse and
The
cart
horse and
came
cart
hurtling round
came
the
hurtling
corner
round the
at a
corner
frightening
at
pace.
a frightening pace.
Very good. Next, repeat stray.
Stray.
Very good. Okay, listen. Stray is a noun. It is an animal such as a cat or
Such as
dog that is
cat
lost or
dog
has no
lost
home.
or has no
For
home.
example, both of her cats were strays that she found wandering in the neighborhood.
Wandering in the neighborhood.
Okay, let's practice. Would you ever consider adopting a stray dog or cat? Would you ever consider adopting a stray dog or cat? Yes or no?
A stray dog. Well,
A stray dog, like dogs that doesn't have any owner, that they just roaming around outside,
roaming,
roaming
roaming,
around, like walking around, like
walking
cat
around.
or dog
Sorry,
that doesn't have a home.
doesn't have a home. Sorry,
Mhm.
one more question. Okay,
Okay.
repeat.
Would you ever consider adopting a stray dog or cat? Would you ever consider adopting
Uh,
a stray dog or cat? Yes or no?
no,
I'd never
I
consider
never consider
adopting a stray dog
adopting
or
a
cat.
stray dog or a cat. Okay,
Very good. Next a bit. Puddle,
paddle,
soggy,
soggy,
squelch.
squirt.
Very good. Okay, listen. Puddle is a noun. It is a small amount of
It's
water,
amount of
mud,
water,
etc. on the
mud,
ground.
etc. on the
For
ground. Okay,
example, I accidentally stepped in a
step
puddle and
in
got
a
my
puddle
shoes wet.
and get my shoes wet.
Soggy is an adjective. It means heavy with water
Heavy
or
with
completely
water,
wet and usually
completely
soft.
wet and usually
For
soft.
example, if I walk through a deep
Walk
puddle,
through
my
the
shoes and
puddle.
socks
My
would get
shoes and socks
soggy.
get soggy.
Squelch
Mm.
is a verb.
Squirt is
It means
verb.
to make a wet sucking
Make a wet
sound.
sucking
For
sound.
example, my shoes would make a squelching
Would make
noise
a
if it would
squirting
get
noise
wet by the
if it
rain.
get wet by the rain.
Okay, okay, let's practice. If you walk through a deep puddle, would your shoes and socks get soggy? If you walk through a deep puddle, would your shoes and socks get soggy? Yes. If
Yes,
I walk
if
through
I
a
walk
deep puddle,
through a deep
my
puddle,
shoes and
my
socks
shoes and
would get
socks
soggy.
would get soggy.
And what kind of noise would your shoes make? And
Shoes
what kind
make.
of noise would your shoes make?
Should make.
My shoes
My
would
shoes
make a
would make
squelching
a
noise.
squirting noise.
Very good. Okay, next. Repeat startle.
Startle.
Start.
Start.
Absorb.
Absorbed.
Very good. Okay, listen. Startle is a verb. It means to cause a person or animal to feel
Animal.
sudden shock or
Sudden
sudden
shock.
alarm.
Sudden alarm.
For example, babies are easily startled by
Easily
sudden
startled
loud
by
noises.
sudden loud noises.
Start is a sudden movement one
Sudden
makes when
movement.
they get
One
startled.
that get
For
startled.
example, I saw my friend sleeping, and when I tapped her shoulder, she woke with a start. Surprise.
Surprise.
Absorb is an adjective. It means
Adjective.
very interested in
Very
something
interested in
and not
something.
paying attention
Not
to
paying
anything
attention
else.
to anything
For
else.
example, if I were absorbed in a
observed
book and
in a book,
someone
and
behind me
someone
tapped me on
behind
the
me
shoulders,
happened through
it would
that.
give me a start.
Give me a start.
Okay, let's practice. Are you easily startled by sudden loud noises? Are you easily startled by
Start.
sudden loud noises? Yes or no?
No,
I'm not easily
I'm
startled
not easily
by
startled
sudden loud
by sudden
noises.
loud noises.
If you were absorbed in a book and someone behind you tapped you on the shoulder,
Tap
would
you
it
on
give
the
you a
shoulder.
start? If you were absorbed in a book and
If
someone behind you tapped you on
someone
the
behind me
shoulder, would
tap
it
you
give
on the
you a
shoulder,
start?
give me a
Yes or
start.
no?
Yes.
If I were absorbed
If I
in a book
observed in a book
and someone
and
behind me
someone behind
tapped
me
me on the
tap
shoulder,
me on the
it
shoulder,
would give me a
it
start.
would give me a start.
Very good. Next, repeat. Impulse.
Impulse.
Think over.
Think over.
Very good. Okay, listen. Impulse is a noun. It means a sudden strong desire to do something.
Desire to do something.
To do something on an impulse or
Impulse.
on a sudden impulse means to do it suddenly
Do
and
it
without
suddenly
thinking
without thinking
about it
about
first.
first.
For example, I sometimes buy useless things on impulse and realizes later that
Realize
what I bought is of no
what
importance
is
to me.
more important to me.
Think over is a phrasal verb. It
It's
means to
about
think about something for a period
something
of time,
period time,
especially in an
especially
effort to
in an
understand
effort to
or make a
understand
decision
or
about it.
make a decision about
For
it.
example, some people do things on impulse and other things think things over
She
first.
thinks over first.
Okay, so let's practice. Are you the kind of person who does things on impulse or do you tend to think things over first? Are you the kind of person who does things on impulse or do you tend to think things over first? Yes or no?
Yes,
I'm the kind of
I'm
person
the kind of
who
person
does things
who
on
does things
impulse.
on
I
impulse.
don't tend
I
to
don't
think
tend
things
to
over
think.
first.
I don't tend to think.
Think things
Okay, I don't tend to think things
over first.
over first.
Very good. One more.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the
Yes,
kind of person
I'm the kind of
who does
person
things
who
on
does things
impulse.
on
I
impulse.
don't tend to
I
think
don't tend to
things
think
over
things
first.
over first.
Very good. Next, repeat random.
Random.
Very good. Okay, listen. Random means without aim
Without
or without purpose
without a
or
purpose.
without conscious
Without a
selection,
conscious
not
selection.
selecting anything
Not to select
for a
anything
purpose.
for purpose.
For example, during his show, the magician got random members of the audience to help him on
To
stage.
help him on the stage.
Let's practice. What does the word random mean? What does the word random mean? The word
The
random
word
means
random means
without aim or
without an
purpose
aim or
or
purpose,
without
or
conscious
without a
selection.
conscious selection.
Very good. Give me an example. Give me an example, please. During his show,
During
the
his show,
magician
the
got
magician
random members
got random
of the
members
audience
of the
to help
audience
him on
to
stage.
help him on stage.
Very good. Next repeat. Anticipate.
Anticipate.
Prosperity.
Prosperity.
Prosperous.
Prosperous.
Very good. Okay, listen. Anticipate is a verb. It means to think of something that will
Something
or might
will
happen in the
or might
future.
happen in the future.
For example, the hotel
The
anticipated my
hotel
every
anticipated my
need.
every
I
need.
didn't have to ask for
I
anything
didn't have
because
for
they
anything
already
because
provided
they
it.
already provided.
Prosperity is a noun. It is
Prosperity
the state of being
state
successful, usually
successful
by making a lot of
by
money.
making a lot of money.
For example, prosperity in a
Prosperity
country is
in a country.
possible
Prosperity
if all the people in it
all the
work
people
together.
in the work together.
Prosperous is an adjective. It means having success, usually
Having
by making a
success
lot of
usually
money.
by making a lot of
For
money.
example, I anticipate that this country's
This
prosperity will
country's
rise in the next 10 years or
rise in the
so.
next 10 years or
I
so.
don't anticipate
I
that
don't
this country
anticipate
will become
this
less
country will
prosperous.
become less prosperous.
Let's practice. Do you anticipate that your country's prosperity will rise in the next 10 years or so? Or do you anticipate that your country will become less
Will become
prosperous?
less
Do you anticipate
prosperous.
that your country's prosperity will rise in the next 10 years or so? Or do you anticipate that
Uh,
the country will become less prosperous?
Become less prosperous.
I anticipate that
I anticipate that
my country's
my
prosperity
country's
will
prosperity
rise.
will not rise.
Okay. I anticipate that
I anticipate that
my country's
my
prosperity
country's
will not
prosperity
rise
will
in the
not
next
rise
10 years
in
or
the
so.
next 10 years or
I
so.
anticipate
I
that
anticipate
my
that
country
my
will
country
become less
will
prosperous.
become less prosperous.
Okay, very good. Okay, next repeat. Stud.
Stack.
Very good. Okay, listen. Stud is a noun. It means one of a set of small pointed pieces of metal or
pieces of
plastic
metal or
that are
plastic
attached to the bottom of a
attached to
running
the
shoe,
bottom of running
football
shoes,
boots, etc.,
football shoes,
to
etc.
stop you from slipping over
Sleeping
so
over.
you won't slip.
Okay, sleeping.
Okay. For example, football boots have studs on the bottom to ensure that they grip the
Ensure that
ground
the grip the ground.
and prevent players from
Prevent the
slipping
players
over.
sleeping over.
Okay, so let's practice. Why do football boots have studs on the bottom? Why do football boots have studs on the bottom? Football boots
Football
have
boots
stud on the
have
bottom
studs on the
to
bottom
ensure that
to
they
ensure
grip
that
the ground
they grip
well
the ground
and
well
prevent
and
players
prevent
from
players
slipping over.
from slipping over
Very good. Next, repeat those.
those.
Those off.
Those off.
Very good. Okay, listen. Those is a verb. It means to sleep lightly, especially for a short period of time.
For
For
period of time.
example, he was dozing on the sofa when I got home.
At home.
Doze off is a phrasal verb. It means to fall asleep, especially
For a
for a
sleep.
short
For a
period of
short
time. For
period of
example,
time.
I have sometimes dozed off while watching a very boring film at the cinema.
More at the cinema.
Okay, so let's practice. Have you
Okay.
ever dozed off while watching a film at the cinema? Have you ever dozed off while watching
So
a film at
while
the
watching
cinema?
the
Yes or
cinema.
no?
Yes,
I have
I
sometimes
have
dozed off
sometimes
while
dozed off
watching a film
while watching a
at the
film
cinema.
at the cinema.
Very good. Next, repeat will.
Where
Very good. Okay, listen. Will is used to express desire,
expressed desire,
choice, willingness,
choice,
or
willingness,
voluntary.
voluntary.
The opposite of doing something voluntarily is doing something against your
Doing something
will.
against
For
your will.
example, I'd say that I had a
As
very
I
strong
have
will,
very strong will,
especially when learning new
especially when
things,
learning
languages, etc.
languages, etc.
Let's practice. What's the opposite of doing something voluntarily? What's the opposite of doing something voluntarily? The opposite
The
of
opposite
doing
of doing
something
something
voluntarily is
voluntarily
against your
is
will.
against your will.
Would you say you had a very strong will? Would you say you had a very strong will? Yes or no?
Yes,
I'd say I
I'd
had
say
a
I
very
had
strong
a
will.
very strong will.
Very good. Next, repeat. Munch,
Munch,
nibble.
nibble,
Very good. Okay, listen. Munch and nibble are verbs.
nibble, verbs.
Okay. The difference between the verbs munch and nibble
Munch and
is that
nibble,
when we munch food,
munch
we move
food.
our jaws
We
a
move
great
our
deal,
jaws a great
rather
deal,
like a cow
rather
eating
like a cow
grass.
eating grass.
Whereas when we nibble
And when
food,
we nibble
we
food,
take tiny
we
bites,
take tiny
rather like a
bites,
mouse.
rather like a mouse.
For example, we munch on popcorn
Munch on
during the movie.
during the
We
movie.
nibble cheese and
Nibble
crackers.
cheese and crackers.
Let's practice. What's the difference between the verb munch and nibble? What's the difference between the verbs munch and
Munch
nibble?
and nibble.
The difference
The
between
difference
the
between
verbs
the
munch and
verbs
nibble
munch and
is
nibble
that
is
when
that
we munch food,
when we munch
we
food,
move our
we move
jaws
our
a great
jaws
deal,
a great
rather like
deal,
a cow
rather like a
eating
cow
grass.
eating grass.
Whereas when we
Whereas
nibble food,
when we nibble
we
food,
take tiny
we
bites,
take tiny
rather
bites,
like a mouse.
rather like a mouse.
Very good. Next, repeat. Estate,
Estate,
vendor.
vendor,
Very good. Okay, listen. Estate is a noun. It means all of someone's
all of
property,
someone
such as
properties
some
such
land,
as land,
houses, money,
houses,
businesses,
money,
industry,
businesses,
etc.
industry.
For example, there are some industrial estates on the outskirts of my town. An estate agent, for example, is a person whose job is
As
about
example,
selling or
it's
finding a
about
buyer
selling
for
a finding
estate
a buyer for
properties
estate
of other
properties
people to
of other
another.
people to another.
Vendor is a noun. It
Vendor
is
is a noun.
someone who sells
Someone
something,
who sells
a seller.
something, a
For
seller.
example, when purchasing property in my country, buyers usually use an
Well,
estate
sure,
agent
use an
rather
estate
than deal
agent
directly
rather
with
than deal
vendors.
directly with the vendors.
Let's practice. Are there any industrial estate on the outskirts of your town? Are there any industrial estates on the outskirts of your town? Yes or no?
Yes,
There are some
there are
industrial
some
estates
industrial
on the
estates
outskirts of
on the
my town.
outskirts of my town.
Right, when purchasing property in your country, do buyers usually use an estate agent rather than deal directly with
Rather than
vendors? When
vendors.
purchasing property in your country, do buyers usually use an estate agent rather than deal directly with vendors? Yes or no?
Yes.
When purchasing
When
property in
purchasing
my
properties
country,
in my
buyers
country,
usually
buyers
use an
usually use
estate
an
agent
estate
rather
agent
than deal
rather
directly
than deal
with
directly
vendors.
with vendors.
Very good. Okay, next. Oh, but we only have
Ah,
7 seconds
okay.
left, so we stop there for today. But very
Thank
good
you so
practice.
much.
Okay, we'll see you again
Yes, see you
tomorrow.
again.
Okay, bye bye.